For a good few years, I've been doing these countdown videos all about my favorite media, and I think it's about time I put them to rest, but not without a proper farewell first. While I've occasionally dabbled in television and animation, I think it's pretty clear that my favorite medium is video games. So I think it's appropriate that for this last countdown, I'll be picking apart 10 specific experiences I've had with games to get to the roots of why they're such a huge part of my life, and why I think they're so incredible. These don't necessarily have to be concrete scenes or actions, just any moments I've had playing games that impacted my understanding of what they can do, along with my thoughts on how I feel they managed to do so. So now I present my top 10 personal experiences with video games. Enjoy. Even beyond its legendary camp factor and often ridiculous action set pieces, Resident Evil 4 is still surprisingly effective at stirring up apprehension and discomfort. This is a game where you've always got to keep an eye on your ammo, and the creatures you find continue to get stronger and increasingly more unsettling. Like, take this bit where you're searching a lab and you see this deformed thing on an operating table. I mean, obviously it's gonna pop up and attack at some point, but even when it did, this scene is a perfect example of execution winning over expectation. Even for Resident Evil, the regenerator is like something that shouldn't exist, lumbering around like it could almost be human, but more like it's some kind of animal in a human suit. And because I read a memo that states this thing can heal itself unless I shoot some invisible weak spots, I now know that I'm basically trapped in a tight space with something I can't reliably kill right now. And looks like fucking that. The first time I saw the regenerator, I was just unloading my entire arsenal on it to no effect, freaking out while it slithered around, trying to bite my head off. Faced with that, what else could I do other than leave and go to test out my new card key and oh, I am so done with this. I don't remember ever being this thrilled when playing a game. Like, that point when I turned the corner and saw another regenerator is probably the only moment outside of jump scares where a game made me jolt in my seat. On top of the sense of claustrophobia and my limited resources, this part tested my flight or fight response, knowing that more of the things I just barely survived are on the loose. And despite all of the game's cool weapons and the inevitable power fantasy that comes with that, even after I learned how to kill the regenerators, I still felt small around them. Let's not even get started on the ones covered in spikes. Before I first played Shadow of the Colossus, I didn't know much about it other than the most hype tagline ever. Some mountains are scaled, others are slain. Oh man, this is gonna make me feel like such a badass. Yeah. Imagine my surprise when I reach the game's 5th Colossus encounter, and the first thing I notice is that the giant bird I'm supposed to be attacking is just kind of minding its own business. The music's calm, and the atmosphere of the place only ever gets intense when you actively bait the Colossus into attacking you by shooting it with arrows. Even when I got on its back, it was less like it was trying to flat out kill me, and more like it's trying to shake me off and defend its own life. Naturally, I'm confused. The boss battle is this cool, high-velocity grapple in the sky, though I can't help but feel that a lot of the turbulence I'm experiencing is because, well, I'm stabbing the thing and making it keel over in pain. I think what ultimately got to me about this battle was when I finally killed the Colossus. For whatever reason, the image of it falling from the sky always stuck with me. It just peacefully falls without retaliating, which hit home with me since I guess I was expecting more of a simple game where I slayed violent kaiju. Instead, when this thing died, it just looked friggin' majestic, and I remember being all like, Godspeed, you goddamn beautiful bird. While the 5th Colossus looked fearsome and even occasionally acted fearsome, this was the first game I'd ever played where I realized that my character might be seen as equally so. After all, both the player character Wander and the opposing Colossi are each trying to live out their own lives, yet at the same time, Wander and even some of the more violent Colossi are actively hunting the other. I guess you could say there's a little bit of monster in everyone. Persona 3 resonated with me quickly as one of my new favorite RPGs, mostly due to how it handles the game's setting. It features a day-by-day time system where during the day and evening you build relationships with people, and at midnight you battle monsters by using the power of your friendships to fight back with mystical beings from across mythology, like this dick on a chariot. Now, when I first played Persona 3, I'd just gotten out of my second year of university, where I was living in a dorm with 4 other people. Given that the main characters of Persona 3 all live in a dorm 2, I quickly found myself noticing that the time system wasn't just cool in terms of how it structured the gameplay segments. Much like my own experience at school that year, each new day living in the dorm had subtle little changes in mood, attendance, and so on, so I found it easier to connect with the situation and characters. For example, one of the dorm mates might be hanging out with everyone else in the living room one day, and then they might be outside doing their own thing the next day. There were also a lot of moments where the game broke the main character's point of view and took me into the personal lives of the secondary characters on certain days. It was choices like these that strengthened the illusion that these characters I was meant to relate to were three-dimensional and fleshed out. Consequently, whenever someone in the party locked themselves in their room after a personal crisis, it added an extra emotional layer where I wanted to see them out and about, only to realize that sometimes it's not about what I want. And since the story of Persona 3 is pretty silly on paper, having additional focus put on developing the characters was essential. I mean, this is a game where people turn into coffins at midnight, your school transforms into a 200-story tall labyrinth, and there's a death god and it's got no eyes. In the end though, what I got out of Persona 3 wasn't so much darkness, no parents, as it was a story about feeling empathy towards other people and how their lives go on after tragedy strikes. I don't know, maybe it was just good timing for me to play it at a point in my life where I had to learn how to live with unfamiliar people. Regardless, Persona 3 was a game where I'd look forward to every new day and what it brought both me and the rest of my party. The next time I've got 90 hours to spare, I know what world I'm going back to. While there is something to be said about judging a game after playing it from start to finish, I also think that a player's first impressions are important. Case in point, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. The first experience I had with this game was when I was about 7 or so. I was visiting the house of some of my cousins where I watched them play the game. They were at the Ice Cavern, and although it isn't really considered one of the more memorable parts of Ocarina of Time, my 7-year-old self had never seen anything like it. The atmosphere of the Ice Cavern was mystifying to me, colorful but empty and foreboding. I was especially intrigued by how the background track was less music and more part of the environment. Like, I hear this and I can imagine ice glittering in the dark. Then suddenly the calm breaks as monsters attack and the music fades into this atonal dissonance that signals danger. At the end of the cavern, when my cousins defeated the threatening, red-eyed wolf and then met Sheik, I found myself wanting more. I wanted to know who Sheik was, I wanted to know what trials and locales lay up ahead, and I generally just wanted to play for myself and figure out this whole unknown factor. It was the first 3D free-roaming game I had seen where I felt like I was witnessing an adventure with actual stakes to the world and characters. And so when my cousins were done, I picked up the controller myself and... What's going on? Why are there zombies? Oh my god, where am I supposed to go? Needless to say, I didn't get anywhere, yet the sheer size of the world always stuck with me as something that would be incredible to experience when I would actually play it and know what I was doing. And as far as first impressions go, I'll never forget how these small fragments of the game managed to capture my attention and interest that much. I mean, I could snark a bit about what might have happened if I'd seen the water temple first, though apart from a few isolated incidents, Ocarina of Time did feel consistently good when I finally completed the full game 10 years later. I really think it deserves the legacy it has. Everyone who plays games of any kind has that one favorite that they played non-stop with friends and family. For me growing up, that was Goldeneye 007. Most of my cousins and a lot of my elementary school friends had the game, and I always looked forward to playing it whenever I went to one of their houses. Even putting aside the then revolutionary 3D perspective and split-screen gameplay, every match we had could feel like its own new and ridiculous outing. Apart from your standard choices of characters, maps, modes, and weapon selections, there were also cheats like DK mode and my personal favorite, paintball mode, because then it became an FPS with actual color in it. As you can imagine, this meant the game was responsible for a unique variety of lasting family memories. Example, hey cuz, remember that time we blew each other up in the bathroom level with proximity mines? Those were more innocent times. Today I still have fun playing Goldeneye, though I admit a part of that enjoyment comes from a drunk, university, residence hangout kind of sense. I say that because I've been there. The game controls awkwardly compared to the new standards set by mouse or double joystick aiming controls, and the graphics... Tiptoe by the window, that is where I'll be. Nevertheless, the spirit of play I experienced in Goldeneye is still fondly remembered as a landmark in gaming. As a testament to that, a dedicated group of modders built Goldeneye Source, a recreation of Goldeneye's multiplayer on the Source engine.
and it's so good.
If you have any games made with Source, download this mod now, and then call up some friends on Skype to play it. Goldeneye Source renews and validates everything that made the original's multiplayer a hit, from the maps to the modes, and it even includes new features and updated graphics and controls to keep it fresh. Many of the friends I met on my old forum became closer because we played games like this and had a lot of laughs doing it. Leave it to that suave Britishman to bring people together. No, not like that. You know that guy from the starting town of like every Pokemon game? He was right. Technology is friggin' awesome. The newest games in the Pokemon series have incredible hardware that allows trading to be a lot more convenient, and also makes it take less time for battlers to test out their new eugenically engineered team of the byproducts of inbreeding. As liberating as these advances are, however, I still feel as if my definitive Pokemon experience came from the older Pokemon Gold and Silver. Going into these games, I knew all of the 151 original Pokemon and very little about the new additions. I mean, I was aware that Meryl was already a thing, though imagine my surprise while I was training one in an attempt to obtain the full power of the legendary Poké-God Pika-Blue! It evolved. And it's cute. It's awesome! What's this, a Skarmory? That looks metal! I want one! That Ponyta is a different color than normal. I want that! But I don't have any Pokeballs! Put simply, these games were all about discovery to me, and the fact that I could take them anywhere meant that nothing stopped me from exploring the enormous world of these games day after day, which is perfect design because of how the game featured a built-in clock that allowed certain events to only occur at specific dates and times. I could try them all from anywhere I went. The game's time system made me feel rewarded for my dedication to these games. For example, if I decided to play on a Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday, it meant I could join a bug catching contest and potentially catch one of my favorite bug Pokemon, like Scyther or Pinsir. The catch. If I somehow lost the contest or didn't catch one of the Pokemon I wanted, that was it. I had to wait 2 real-world days to participate again. So when I would try again and win, I felt like I earned it for my patience. In modern Pokemon games, these time-specific events felt more superficial because, well, I can easily alter the 3DS clock and get it done without feeling challenged. In Gold and Silver, you couldn't change the time and date without entering a needlessly complicated code that was pretty much impossible to calculate without the internet's help, and was further hidden by a button combination which I didn't even know existed until I wrote this video. My point is, while Gold and Silver aren't as advanced as later titles in some respects, the amount of content to explore in these games still enthralls me. To this day, I don't think I've seen another installment of Pokemon push the limits of its system quite like these did. Plus, it's a rare example of how a game's limitations actually improved my time playing it rather than detracted from it. All except that internal save battery, because it's great to want to play one of Nintendo's best games ever, only you can't because you can't find the right batteries for it anywhere near where you live! The Oculus Rift is a fascinating piece of technology, and I'm excited for its full release. For those who don't know, the Oculus Rift is a virtual reality headset that can connect to computers and be used to play all kinds of content, including games that change the camera focus as your head moves. It's a must-try, especially if you're a person who likes to feel like you're really inside of a game. I was lucky enough to use one of their development kits in a university class I was taking about digital media. The professor was showing it off to everyone to demonstrate how virtual reality can be used to tell a story. To that end, we were each individually shown 3 programs, including a simulation of the final scene from Close Encounters of the Third Kind that allowed for free keypad movement, and a horror title called 1157. I mean, I naturally wanted to keep going and see this through to the end because of how cool this device was, except now it's pretty much making me unable to see anything in front of me but some kind of scary shit. Heck, after a few games that used keypad controls, I at least expected I'd be able to walk, except all I could really do was stay put, move my head, and contemplate what'll be thrown at me from whatever direction I'm looking at. So yes, I was flipping out in the middle of class. How was your day, Dad? Even beyond the novelty of testing out a virtual reality device for the first time, what ultimately cemented trying the Oculus Rift onto this countdown was when I got home and researched 1157. For some reason, I thought it was a game because of the interactivity, except its website actually described it as more like a short film. From a technology development standpoint, I think that's incredible. Modern media is constantly changing and converging to create brand new forms of experiences, and I'm witnessing this field's growth firsthand. Now, short films can be interactive, games can be anime, film series can be like television episodes, and that's just naming a few examples of new media. People use media for a multitude of reasons, and with the increasing amount of unique ways to present it, it's more likely than ever that someone will find the most effective ways for media to speak to them. The fact is, labels like video games or movies will always be there to describe specific media conventions, but they are starting to blur together. It's inescapable, and so I welcome the capabilities that the Oculus Rift offers, even when it's scaring the crap out of me. More than any other video games, Rare's Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64 defined what the medium was to me as a kid. I was that kid that was amazed by everything wherever he went. Old, customizable train sets allowed me to create little spaces that worked how I wanted them to, and movies such as Star Wars were these massive dimensions that I wanted to be a part of. So when I played Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64, they were outlets for me to experience both those types of innocent awe. They were an audiovisual escape from the typical, and at the same time, the act of engaging with what I was seeing and hearing allowed me to have fun how I wanted. Forgetting the core objectives of obtaining golden collectibles in order to win the games, I personally was engrossed the most in the amount of detail and imagination that went into the worlds I was exploring. Visually, I could jump into one pool of water and marvel at all the pretty fish inside it, and then I could go into another pool and see that thing. Even something as minuscule as this lone pillar in a museum captured my imagination. For some reason, the designers bothered to give it its own unique texture despite it having no use besides being near a minor collectible item. Plus, the ability to change my camera perspective made me feel an even greater sense that I could take these environments in at my own pace. This meant that part of my motivation to keep playing was that everywhere I went in these games, I'd end up seeing something new that could be anywhere from colorful to scary to peaceful. It was like I was in a virtual art gallery. The cast of these two games, especially in Banjo-Kazooie, also added even more of my incentive to keep coming back. Because when I play a game where a shaman turns me into a pumpkin and then expresses his desire to eat said googly-eyed pumpkin, I want to see how this game's gonna push the envelope next. Furthermore, the soundtracks to these games, both composed by Grant Kirkhope, complemented each of these worlds like they were made for each other, while also communicating to me an individual charm and identity for each. The music that resounds throughout Gruntilda's lair in Banjo-Kazooie is one of my favorites. It's bouncy and paced slowly and steadily with a low-pitched melody and instrumentation that reminds me of how Banjo is sneaking quietly under the evil witch's radar. And the piece that scores the final level of Donkey Kong 64 is just intense, and I love it. The whirring sound that underlies the entire track makes me think that what I'm hearing is King K. Rool's machine revving up to destroy DK's island, especially since it notably disappears when the machine is deactivated and the music changes. It's uneasy, with sudden changes to a jittery xylophone or string sounds that get increasingly high-pitched as the piece goes on. I could continue about all of my specific memories from these two games, but the point is that in the end, all of that wonder I felt as a kid came from the effort that Rare put into the sights and sounds of adventuring through their whimsical worlds. There's a reason I so often return to these games over, say, Super Mario 64. While all three games play similarly, Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64 capitalized on their goal of having me search for things by making me want to search for the things. Because nothing says collectathon like appealing to my inner bloodlust. Pumpkin lust. What? Metroid Prime is a game that I only end up loving more the more I try it. Every playthrough I've begun of this game always ends up feeling like its own fresh and new experience. I always seem to catch some design choice I'd never noticed before that adds to my understanding of why I think the game works so well. These details are everywhere, including a few seemingly unimportant bits of nature that turn out to be hints about how to progress, and locations that completely nullify backtracking woes by always being updated with new enemies along with alternate paths to accommodate your latest equipment. Yet my favorite example of how Metroid Prime just gets game design can be found at the very beginning of the game. Playing Metroid Prime for the first time, the only information I'd received about what I was getting into was the very brief lead-up given about Samus Aran's mission directive. After getting out of the gunship aboard an abandoned frigate, I'm introduced to the scan visor mechanic, which the game quickly conditions me to use a lot by way of a few gates and rooms that need to be operated with this device. In hindsight, I feel that this tutorial was especially brilliant when I played the original GameCube version of Metroid Prime. There, the user interface displayed the button command for the scan visor on screen at all times, a decision that allowed this otherwise foreign mechanic to become second nature, like jumping or shooting. After passing through a few hallways, the first big room I encountered was this inferno full of dead creatures. Naturally, because it's hardwired into my brain now, I wonder if scanning has any use here, and as I start using the scan visor, I steadily discover more information about the ship and its occupants. I eventually learned that this is a space pirate vessel where experiments on creatures are being performed, and the largest of which ended up escaping and causing havoc. I also realized that Metroid Prime is using its gameplay to construct my experience. Apart from its required use for activating certain devices, the scan visor is actually optional when it's used for presenting details about Metroid Prime's world and lore. As a method of plot development, using the scan visor to collect data means that Samus's goal as a bounty hunter is being fulfilled by virtue of presumably sending it back to her employer. I mean, this is a game where Samus is exploring a planet all alone, so she doesn't need to talk. I think it's clever that the game can easily feel like a sci-fi mission plot conveyed along by what the player does rather than what the character says. However, if I don't care about that and I just want the world of the game to be mine to explore, marvel at, or even feel threatened by as I like it, that's also allowed. In fact, I think the game encourages this kind of exploration. Metroid Prime didn't need to be first person after all, but what better perspective is there for traveling and perceiving the world at the seat of your own wit? Heck, it doesn't even have to be either or. I could still use the scan visor for additional reading material if I'm interested enough in the world, while still keeping a focus on my exploration. What I'm trying to say with all of this is, I feel that Metroid Prime was surprisingly versatile in terms of how it allowed me to feel a sense of control over what I was playing. Though it's probably nothing compared to traditionally open-world games like Skyrim, I love that Prime never asserts that there's a right way to play. Unless you're going for 100% completion, in which case you're out of luck there. Metroid Prime's an adventure game with its own set world and limitations, sure, but its intro sequence makes it clear through its mechanics that you have your say in the experience too. It's still one of my favorites. I first played Journey last year at the house of some of my university friends. I often stayed over there to have fun with them and play games like Skullgirls, where the four of us would end up dubbing over the story modes with our favorite character impressions.
My, such anger, number 34 double D.
Anyways, one day, after crashing with said friends for a night, the next morning, one of them, out of nowhere, just asks me to try Journey. So naturally, because I'd just woken up and the sofa I was sleeping on wasn't long enough to support my legs, I'm all like, sure, whatever. Where's the fucking coffee machine at? Now, this was at a time of my life where I was in the middle of this months-long period of depression resulting from this constant anxiety I was feeling. For a chunk of that time, the nagging worries and what-ifs I was experiencing were preventing me from enjoying things like I used to, and combined with the fact that I was in my last year of university with all of the tensions that came with it, I was feeling lost. In hindsight, it seems appropriate that when I started playing Journey, the first thing I noticed about the game was how it depicted my destination. A mountain summit obscured by the distance, with a mysterious, enticing light shining clear through the haze. I thought that outlining my objective like that was smart on a design level, sure, though I can't ignore how I was feeling at the time and how it added to my perception of what was going on. I found myself really empathizing with the situation and the idea of making it to somewhere greater than I was at now. I then started the first stage, and I quickly became interested in how unconventional Journey was, with most of its gameplay consisting of jumping, simple interactions with devices, and lots of walking. I liked how the simplicity allowed me to focus more easily on the game's gorgeous art design while still being a game. This was also noted by one of my friends as he watched me play. It wasn't a game he felt he'd be interested in, though he didn't view it as a negative necessarily, so much as it was just something different. By total happenstance, I eventually found a portal which led me to what was the second to last level of the game, where I discovered another cloaked figure who seemed to be leading me through the harsh weather. I mean, maybe my friend was right. The game wasn't anything complex mechanically speaking, though I still found that the simple act of following an ally through these beautiful yet dangerous environments was really sweet and encouraging. Only justifying this was when my player character seemed to die in a blizzard alongside my partner, only to be brought back to good health. It seemed like everything was hopeless for a while, but in both the gameplay with the partner and in this cutscene with an entire civilization, the game made it clear that people were looking out for my character and that the journey was worth helping them through. Given where I was when I played this game, I was beyond glad to see a message that positive and affirming. The worst part about my anxiety disorder is that it often gets difficult, if not impossible, to see beyond how worried I feel. For Journey to follow up the most downcast portion of the game with these vibrant colors, soaring music, and the ability to fly, it was as if to say there is something better after all of this. As I ended the game meeting my partner one last time, I felt the happiest I'd been in months. I didn't even know who this character I was traveling with was supposed to be, yet even as the credits rolled, I was still too focused on how much I loved the experience for that to matter. Worth it! So let me put this the best way that I can. Journey was a lot of things to me while I played it. It was an emotional ride, told through interactivity and gorgeous aesthetics, an entertaining talking point between me and my friends about how different people use media, and some temporary relief from my anxiety problems. As this was all going on while I was playing Journey, and even after I finished, I remember thinking a lot about why I'd choose to be this invested in gaming and media. That train of thought ended up creating this very video as my attempt to justify what games mean to me. There's an increasingly diverse amount of uses for this technology, and the best part of the medium is that all of them are valid and constructive in some way. Video games are always going to be excellent for entertainment or building interpersonal connections, and they can be equally effective for fostering empathy and understanding new perspectives. Or they can even be used for practical purposes, including virtual reality treatments for people with disorders such as PTSD. And given how reliant game technology is on individual experience, I'm sure you can think of others. If there's anything I want to end this video on, it's the idea of being as open to others as possible about their experiences with any game and any other form of media. So sit back, relax, and from there, just play. Hey, cuz, remember that time we blew each other in the bathroom level with proximity mines?